Most traders come into the market with dreams so vivid they can almost taste them. They imagine freedom, the ability to wake up when they want, travel when they please, and never answer to anyone again. They imagine themselves watching charts like a professional sniper, pulling profit from the chaos with precision. They imagine winning, but very few imagine enduring. Because make no mistake, the markets don't reward those who can dream big, they reward those who can endure uncertainty without breaking. And that's where most traders fall apart, not because they lack skill, not because they lack knowledge, but because they lack emotional endurance. The market doesn't punish you. It reflects you. Every fear, every impulse, every insecurity you haven't mastered, it all shows up in your trades. That's why the first major losses always feel personal. They attack your identity, not your account. They whisper that you're not cut out for this. And most people believe that voice. They don't quit because they lose money. They quit because they lose belief. The belief that growth can coexist with failure. The belief that the struggle is part of mastery, not evidence of unworthiness. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Success in trading rarely feels like success while you're building it. It feels like confusion, repetition, and a constant fight with yourself. The moments that matter most often come disguised as moments of despair. You won't know you're about to turn the corner until you've already stumbled past it. Every professional trader has faced that moment, the moment they wanted to quit. The only difference between them and everyone else is that they stayed in the discomfort long enough to learn from it. They stopped taking losses personally and started seeing them as data. They began treating trading not as a game of prediction, but as a discipline of self-awareness. Because when you stop needing the market to make you feel good, you finally start trading correctly. When you stop measuring your progress by short-term results and start measuring it by your emotional control, your consistency, your ability to execute under pressure, you begin to evolve. Most traders never get there. They want the result, but not the refinement. They want to grow, but not to feel the pain that comes with growth. They think the next system, the next strategy, the next indicator will save them from their emotions. But the truth is, no strategy can protect you from yourself. The market isn't testing your setup. It's testing your state of mind. Quitting is easy when you don't understand this, because quitting feels like relief. It feels like escape. But what you're really escaping is the very training that was meant to transform you. Every losing streak was teaching you emotional balance. Every frustrating drawdown was showing you where your beliefs were fragile. Every mistake was a message from the market saying, "You're not ready yet, but you can be." That's why so many people quit right before they succeed. They can't see that the pain they feel today is proof they're on the right path. Growth always hurts in the middle. The emotional discomfort you feel after a loss isn't failure, it's friction. And friction means movement. Trading mastery isn't about learning more strategies. It's about unlearning emotional reactivity. It's about training your mind to stay neutral when everything in you wants to react. It's about developing the ability to execute without fear, without hope, without the need to be right. So when you feel the urge to quit, pause. Don't see it as weakness. See it as a signal. It means you're close to breaking through an emotional barrier that has held you back for years. If you can sit in that discomfort without running from it, something extraordinary happens. Your identity shifts from someone trying to win to someone who no longer needs to lose. That's when trading stops being a battlefield and starts becoming a mirror. That's when you stop needing the market to confirm your worth and start letting it simply reflect your growth. Because the moment you stop trading for validation, you start trading with vision. And that's when you finally realize success was never hiding behind a winning trade. It was hiding behind your willingness to stay in the game when every part of you wanted to walk away. Most traders believe that the market is their biggest obstacle. They look at volatility, unpredictable news cycles, algorithmic trading, and institutional manipulation as the reasons they struggle to succeed. But that belief is the first illusion they must shatter. The truth is, the market doesn't cause your failure. It only reveals it. What truly ends most trading journeys is not volatility, not randomness, and not lack of opportunity. It's emotional resistance, the internal fight between who you are and who you need to become to succeed. Emotional resistance is the quiet force that makes you close a winning trade too early because you're afraid it might reverse. It's what makes you move your stop loss farther away because you can't bear the thought of being wrong. It's what makes you chase trades that don't fit your plan because you can't stand sitting still. It's subtle, powerful, and entirely self-inflicted. The market merely provides the mirror, you supply the distortion. Every trader starts their journey with excitement. The charts look full of potential, every candle a possibility, every breakout a promise. But very soon, that excitement meets its first real test. Loss, not theoretical loss, but real loss. The kind that makes your chest tighten, your palms sweat, and your thoughts spiral. The kind that shakes your sense of control. And in that moment, something profound happens. The market stops being an external environment and becomes a reflection of your inner world. When you lose, the market doesn't just take money, it exposes your relationship with uncertainty, risk, and self-worth. Some people see loss as data, neutral information about probability and execution. Others see it as judgment, as personal failure. The difference between those two mindsets determines who survives long enough to grow and who quits under emotional pressure. Emotional resistance arises from our need for control. We crave certainty because our minds are wired for survival, not performance. In the wild, uncertainty meant danger. In the markets, it's simply part of the game, but your subconscious doesn't know the difference. It still treats every losing trade as a threat to your safety. That's why fear feels so real, even when you logically know your risk is limited. You're not reacting to the chart, you're reacting to a primitive part of your mind screaming for protection. But here's the paradox. The more you try to control the market, the more it controls you. The harder you push for predictability, the more emotional you become when randomness appears. Emotional resistance builds. When you refuse to accept the simple truth that anything can happen, you can have the perfect setup, flawless risk management, and still lose. That's not failure, it's probability. Yet most traders can't emotionally accept that truth. They want the market to make sense. They want it to reward their effort. They want fairness in a place that offers none. This is why emotional resistance, not volatility, ends most journeys. Volatility is external. It can be measured, managed, and adapted to. Emotional resistance is internal. It can only be acknowledged, understood, and dissolved. You can't fight it with logic. You can only outgrow it through awareness. Let's look deeper at how emotional resistance manifests. It shows up as impatience. You can't wait for your setup to align, so you enter early. You rationalize that it's close enough, but deep down it's your discomfort with waiting that drives the decision. You want relief, not results. It shows up as revenge trading. You take a loss and immediately want to get it back. But what you're really trying to recover isn't your money, it's your sense of control. You feel exposed, vulnerable, and you can't stand it, so you act impulsively, trying to repair the emotional wound with action. It shows up as overconfidence. You win a few trades and start feeling invincible. You stop following your rules because your ego convinces you that you've figured it out. But the moment the market humbles you, and it always does, you're back to doubt, anger, and confusion. It shows up as avoidance. You don't want to look at your losing trades. You stop journaling because it hurts to see the truth. You distract yourself with new indicators or strategies to avoid confronting your emotional patterns. You tell yourself you're still learning, but in reality, you're running from discomfort. This cycle repeats endlessly for most traders. They think they need better tools, when what they need is better emotional awareness. They think they're battling the market, when they're really battling themselves. The traders who survive long enough to win understand that emotional resistance is not something to eliminate. It's something to observe. You can't make fear disappear. You can't make uncertainty feel comfortable, but you can learn to respond without letting it dictate your actions. That's what separates the professionals from the hopefuls. Professionals understand that discipline isn't about control, it's about surrender. It's the ability to execute your plan despite discomfort. It's about trusting your process more than your emotions. It's about being willing to lose small, to stay in the game long enough to win big. But to reach that point, you must first face your own resistance head on. You must be willing to feel it without reacting to it. That's the hard part. Because emotional resistance thrives on avoidance. The more you resist the feeling of uncertainty, the more power it gains. The only way to dissolve it is to experience it fully, to sit with the discomfort of loss, of doubt, of not knowing, and realize it can't destroy you. When you trade, every tick tests your patience, every loss tests your confidence, and every gain tests your humility. The market doesn't care about your goals or your fears. It simply reveals whether you can stay emotionally stable when outcomes defy your expectations. If you can't accept emotional pain as part of the learning process, you'll always find reasons to quit. You'll say the market is too manipulated. You'll say it's too volatile. You'll say it's impossible without inside information. But those are just excuses to hide from the truth, that your resistance, not the market, is the barrier. Think about how most traders quit. It rarely happens after one big loss. It happens gradually. Death by 1,000 emotional cuts. Every time they hesitate on a winning trade, every time they overtrade after a loss, every time they break their own rule, they lose a bit of confidence. And once that internal trust is gone, the external world feels unbearable. They don't quit because they can't make money. They quit because they can't trust themselves anymore. That's why the real breakthrough in trading is not intellectual. It's emotional. It's when you finally accept that losses are not personal, that mistakes are part of mastery, and that the market owes you nothing. It's when you stop fighting reality and start aligning with it. When you accept that uncertainty is the only certainty, emotional resistance begins to fade. You start seeing trades as neutral events, not emotional judgments. You stop labeling yourself as good or bad based on results. You become process-oriented instead of outcome-obsessed. That's when trading starts to feel effortless. Not because it's easy, but because you've stopped creating internal friction. To get there, you must rebuild your relationship with discomfort. Most traders want confidence before action, but confidence doesn't come first. You act your way into confidence. You show up every day, follow your plan, take your losses gracefully, and execute your edge. Slowly, you teach your nervous system that it's safe to experience uncertainty. That's how emotional resistance weakens. Not through willpower, but through repetition and acceptance. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop fighting your emotions, they lose their grip on you. Fear turns into focus. Frustration turns into feedback. Doubt turns into data. You begin to see the market not as an opponent, but as a teacher. Every chart, every trade, every outcome becomes a mirror reflecting your state of mind. This is why emotional mastery is the foundation of trading success. Because without it, no system can save you. You could be handed the most profitable strategy in the world, and you would still sabotage it the moment your emotions took over. Emotional resistance makes consistency impossible because it keeps you reacting instead of responding. Volatility doesn't destroy accounts. Impulsiveness does. News events don't ruin traders. Ego does. The market's chaos doesn't end careers. Emotional fragility does. Once you understand this, trading stops being about prediction and starts being about perception. Your goal isn't to eliminate volatility. It's to eliminate your emotional need for certainty. You stop asking, what will the market do next? And start asking, how will I respond to whatever it does? That shift changes everything. It puts the power back where it belongs, with you. Most people won't reach that stage because it demands inner work most aren't willing to do. It requires patience, honesty, and the courage to face your own mind without judgment. It means admitting that you are your biggest obstacle and that every solution begins with your own self-awareness. But for those who do, trading becomes more than a profession. It becomes a practice, a spiritual discipline of observation and detachment, a constant reminder that mastery isn't about control, it's about flow. When you dissolve emotional resistance, you stop quitting after setbacks. You start seeing them as invitations to grow. You stop being afraid of losing because you realize you can't lose who you are. You may lose trades, but you never lose yourself. And that's the turning point, because once you understand that emotional resistance, not market volatility, is what ends most journeys, you stop trying to fix the market and start mastering your mind. From that point forward, every fluctuation in price is no longer a threat. It's a test. Every challenge is no longer a reason to quit. It's a chance to strengthen your discipline. Every loss is no longer a failure. It's a feedback loop refining your edge. The market doesn't reward the smartest or the fastest. It rewards the most emotionally stable, the ones who can stay calm in chaos, neutral in uncertainty, and focused amid distraction. It's a truth most traders never learn until it's too late. They think pain is a signal to stop, when in reality, it's the proof that transformation is taking place. The discomfort you feel when you're losing, when you're doubting, when you're emotionally drained from the market's chaos, that's not failure. That's progress in disguise. That's the process of your old self dying so your new self can take its place. The irony of growth is that it rarely feels like growth while it's happening. When you're improving, you don't feel strong, you feel tested, you don't feel confident, you feel uncertain, you don't feel successful, you feel stretched beyond what you thought you could handle. That's because progress isn't about ease. It's about expansion, and expansion always hurts before it heals. The market, more than any other environment, is designed to expose your emotional thresholds. It's not personal, it's mathematical, psychological, and brutally honest. It doesn't care about your comfort zone, it cares about your ability to operate when your comfort zone collapses. Every losing trade, every missed opportunity, every impulsive decision, it's all part of a training ground designed to shape your mindset, not break your spirit. But if you interpret that pain as punishment instead of process, You'll quit before the real transformation begins. Pain in trading comes from friction, the clash between your expectations and reality. You expect a setup to work because it looks perfect, but the market moves the other way. You expect a streak of wins to continue, but suddenly your system hits a drawdown. You expect consistency, but you're met with randomness. That gap between what you think should happen and what does happen is where emotional pain is born. But if you can learn to view that pain differently, not as a threat, but as feedback, you start to unlock the secret behind mastery, because pain is not there to stop you. It's there to show you where your beliefs don't align with the truth. When you first start trading, you think the goal is to avoid pain, to avoid losses, to avoid mistakes, to avoid being wrong. But that mindset keeps you stuck, because in trying to avoid pain, you avoid growth. You avoid the exact situations that would have forced you to become more patient, more disciplined, more emotionally intelligent. The market doesn't just demand technical skill, it demands emotional strength. And that strength can only be built through experience, through repeated exposure to discomfort, until it no longer defines you. Think about how progress actually happens in every field of human development. A muscle grows by tearing down fibers. A seed pushes through the dirt before it ever sees the sun. A diamond forms under relentless pressure. The same law applies to trading. You can't grow without friction. You can't mature without mistakes. You can't evolve without endurance. Pain is the universe's way of refining you. It's not the end of your journey. It's the tuition you pay for mastery. But most traders drop out of the school before they graduate. They take the first wave of emotional pain as proof they're not cut out for it, when it's really proof that they're in the right place. When the market frustrates you, it's teaching you patience. When it humbles you, it's teaching you humility. When it triggers you, it's showing you your blind spots. When it punishes your ego, it's giving you a chance to dissolve it. But if you run from that pain, you run from your evolution. And if you keep running, you end up chasing comfort, not progress. Comfort becomes the drug that numbs your potential. You start looking for the easy system, the perfect strategy, the no-loss method, and you never realize that what you're really seeking is emotional anesthesia. You want to escape the uncertainty, the fear, the frustration. But escaping pain means escaping growth. Every trader who's ever reached consistency has one thing in common. They stayed long enough in the pain to learn from it. They stopped judging themselves for feeling uncomfortable. They stopped expecting the market to feel easy. They stopped needing constant reassurance that they were on the right track. They trusted the process even when it hurt. Because that's what progress looks like in real time. Chaos. The chart doesn't move in straight lines, and neither does your growth. You'll have days where everything clicks, followed by days where you question everything you'll think you've mastered, your emotions, only to overreact the next day. You'll think your edge has vanished, only to realize it was your confidence that disappeared. This up and down motion isn't failure, it's feedback. It's your psyche stretching to handle new levels of uncertainty. But pain makes people impatient. They want linear results in a nonlinear game. They want immediate validation that what they're doing is working. When they don't get it, they assume something's wrong, but nothing's wrong. What's happening is the messy middle of transformation. The part where your old patterns are collapsing, but your new patterns aren't fully formed yet. That in-between phase is emotionally brutal, but it's also sacred. It's where identity shifts happen. It's where traders stop reacting to every tick and start responding with clarity. To grow as a trader, you have to make peace with pain, not as an enemy to conquer, but as a messenger to listen to. When you feel frustration, it means your expectations are too rigid. When you feel fear, it means your risk is too large or your mindset is too attached to outcome. When you feel doubt, it means you've stopped trusting your process. Pain always has a message. It's your job to translate it. The problem is that most traders suppress those messages. They treat emotional discomfort as weakness instead of wisdom. They distract themselves with analysis, YouTube videos, new setups, anything to avoid sitting with the feeling. But awareness is the first step toward freedom. You can't change what you refuse to feel when you start observing your pain. Instead of reacting to it, something profound happens. The emotional charge begins to fade. The same losses that used to paralyze you now just inform you. The same drawdowns that used to make you panic now make you reflect. The same frustrations that used to drain you now sharpen your focus. That's what true progress feels like. Not elation, not constant confidence, but calm neutrality. Neutrality is the goal because it's where clarity lives. And the only path to neutrality runs through pain. You can't numb yourself into calmness. You have to walk through the fire of your emotions until they lose their power over you. That's why most people never reach it. They want peace without process. They want mastery without mess. Every time you face pain and stay present with it, you're training your nervous system to handle more uncertainty. You're expanding your emotional bandwidth. That's how resilience is built, not by avoiding losses, but by learning to experience them without losing composure. When you can watch the market move against you and still think clearly, you've already won a battle. Most traders never fight long enough to win. Progress often hides behind the moments that make you question everything. When you blow an account, when you feel lost, when you're emotionally exhausted, those are the crossroads where most people walk away. But for the few who stay, those moments become turning points. The breakdowns that felt like endings become the foundations of breakthroughs, because pain has a purpose. It dismantles the parts of you that can't handle success. That's the hidden beauty of progress disguised as pain. It strips away illusion. It forces you to let go of ego, entitlement, and false certainty. It shows you that control is an illusion and that freedom lies in acceptance. When you stop resisting reality, you start flowing with it. And that's when trading becomes what it was meant to be, a mirror of your inner state, not a battlefield for your emotions. You'll start to notice that the same patterns appear both in your charts and in your behavior. You'll see that the impulse to chase trades mirrors the impulse to chase validation. The need to be right mirrors the fear of being seen as inadequate. The avoidance of risk mirrors the avoidance of vulnerability. Every pain point in trading reflects a deeper emotional pattern that already exists within you. And when you realize that, the market becomes your greatest teacher. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every frustration, a feedback loop. Every pain, a portal to a higher level of awareness. You stop fighting what hurts and start listening to it. You begin to see that every difficult experience is sculpting you into the kind of trader who can thrive under pressure. But you can only reach that stage if you embrace the truth. Growth is uncomfortable by design. You're not supposed to feel good while you're evolving. You're supposed to feel uncertain, stretched, and vulnerable. That's the emotional tax you pay for transformation. The difference between those who make it and those who don't isn't intelligence, it's endurance. It's the willingness to stay in the pain long enough to understand its purpose. So when you feel frustration rise, when your emotions flare, when your confidence wavers, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Because that single shift in perspective turns every setback into an opportunity. Pain doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're being refined. It means you're evolving into someone who can handle more risk, more uncertainty, more responsibility, more freedom. Every time you process pain consciously, you expand your capacity for growth. And one day, you'll look back on all the moments you thought were breaking you and realize they were building you. You'll see that every emotional storm was clearing space for clarity. Every disappointment was carving out resilience. Every setback was preparing you for consistency. Progress doesn't feel like progress in real time. It feels like resistance. It feels like pressure. It feels like pain. But that pain is proof that you're moving beyond who you used to be. The very discomfort you're trying to avoid is the signal that you're on the edge of transformation. So the next time you sit in front of your screen, watching the market move against your position, remember this. Your reaction in that moment is the real trade. The candles on the chart are just a reflection of the candles burning in your mind. If you can stay centered through the pain, you're already winning in the only game that matters, the game within. Progress will never announce itself with comfort. It will always disguise itself as struggle. But if you can learn to recognize the disguise, you'll stop running from pain and start using it. You'll stop quitting when it hurts and start leaning into the lesson. You'll stop seeing challenges as setbacks and start seeing them as sacred steps on the path to mastery. Every trader enters the market wanting success. They imagine freedom, abundance, and mastery. They want to feel in control of their lives, their income, and their future. But the harder they chase success, the further it seems to drift away. Because success, especially in trading, isn't something you can force. It's not a finish line you sprint toward. It's a state of being you grow into. It arrives not when you demand it, but when you finally stop needing it to prove your worth. That's the paradox that destroys most traders long before they ever master the craft. The desire to succeed, so intense, so emotional, so deeply rooted, creates resistance. You start needing the market to cooperate with your expectations. You start taking trades not because they meet your criteria, but because you want to feel closer to success. You begin to interpret every loss as failure, every drawdown as injustice, every quiet day as wasted time. You start trading from the same emotional place that keeps people trapped in scarcity, a mindset of lack. When you trade needing to win, you're already at a disadvantage. You're not observing the market. You're projecting onto it. You're no longer responding to what's there. You're reacting to what you hope or fear will happen. And that emotional attachment to outcome blinds you to reality. It turns every decision into an act of desperation instead of discipline. The truth is, success doesn't respond to need. It responds to neutrality. The less you chase it, the more naturally it emerges. Because success in trading is not about intensity, it's about alignment. It's about becoming emotionally stable enough to act without attachment, to execute your edge without expectation, and to allow results to flow from process, not pressure. This is why so many traders struggle for years despite having knowledge, tools, and opportunity. They keep thinking they're one system away, one breakthrough away, one aha moment away from consistency. But what they're really chasing isn't technical. It's emotional. They want certainty in an uncertain world. They want validation from a market that doesn't care. They want control over something that cannot be controlled. The moment you stop demanding success, you begin to see how much energy you are wasting trying to bend the market to your will. You begin to understand that success isn't about force. It's about flow. The best traders in the world aren't the ones who push hardest. They're the ones who flow with what the market offers. They know when to act, when to wait, and when to step aside. They've stopped trying to make money every day, and because of that, they do. When you're attached to the idea of success, every moment feels like a test of your value. You take a loss and suddenly you question your ability. You miss a move and you feel inadequate. You have a slow month and you spiral into doubt. But when you detach from the need for success, you see all of it differently. Losses become data. Missed trades become neutral events. Drawdowns become part of the rhythm. You stop judging yourself by temporary results and start measuring yourself by emotional control. This shift doesn't happen easily. It requires breaking the very habits your ego depends on. The ego wants to feel like it's achieving, progressing, winning. But trading doesn't reward emotional highs. It rewards consistency. It rewards those who can act without needing to feel good about it. The more you demand success, the more you feed the ego, and the ego thrives on control. It hates uncertainty, and trading is made entirely of uncertainty. So the trader who needs success ends up sabotaging themselves at every turn. They cut winners short because they're afraid of losing unrealized profit. They let losers run because they can't admit they were wrong. They trade too big because they want to make it happen faster. And every one of those actions pushes them further away from what they want most: consistency. At some point, every trader faces a breaking moment, a point where they've tried everything, studied everything, forced everything, and nothing works. They're burned out, emotionally exhausted, and disillusioned. That's usually when the transformation begins, because that's when they finally surrender. That's when they stop chasing success and start focusing on execution. That's when they let go of the illusion that effort alone creates outcomes. You don't succeed in trading because you work harder. You succeed because you think clearer. And you think clearer only when you're emotionally calm. Emotional calmness is impossible when you're desperate for success. When you stop demanding success, you stop trying to control every outcome. You stop needing every trade to work. You start focusing on the only thing that's truly within your control: your behavior. You show up, you follow your plan, you manage your risk, and you accept whatever comes next. That's not indifference, that's mastery. Because when you no longer need the market to reward you, you finally become worthy of its rewards. There's a hidden truth most traders never see. Success doesn't change your emotions. Emotional mastery creates success. The results you're chasing are the reflection of who you've become internally. When you're grounded, patient, and disciplined, your results naturally align. The market rewards emotional neutrality because it allows consistent behavior. Consistent behavior produces consistent outcomes. But if your emotions swing with every win or loss, your actions will too. Success then is not something you achieve. It's something you allow. It's the natural byproduct of mental alignment. You stop demanding it when you finally trust the process enough to let it unfold in its own time. Think about the word demand. It implies force, pressure, urgency, but the market doesn't bend under pressure. It only mirrors it. When you demand success, you're broadcasting tension, impatience, and fear. The market reflects that back to you in volatility, mistakes, and overtrading. But when you release that tension, you start seeing the market for what it is: neutral, balanced, and full of opportunity. That's why success feels effortless to those who've truly mastered themselves, not because it's easy, but because they've stopped fighting against the flow. They no longer need to be right, they need to be consistent, they no longer need constant results, they need repeated execution, they no longer need to win, they need to show up. The paradox deepens when you no longer crave success, your decisions become purer. You stop forcing trades that don't fit, you stop hesitating when opportunity arises. You stop riding emotional highs and lows. You become objective, detached, and centered, and in that mental stillness, your edge expresses itself naturally. You start doing the right things automatically because there's no noise between thought and action. When you stop demanding success, you also stop fearing loss, because loss only feels devastating when your self-worth is tied to outcome. But once you decouple identity from results, losses lose their emotional sting. They become part of the rhythm, an expense, not an insult. That's when the market stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a teacher. The trader who chases success looks at every losing trade as a setback. The trader who understands flow looks at every losing trade as tuition. The difference isn't strategy, it's perspective. The first trader trades to prove something. The second trades to learn something. The first sees mistakes as failure. The second sees them as feedback. Over time, that mental difference compounds more than any indicator ever could. There's a moment in every trader's evolution when they realize the market is not something to conquer. It's something to collaborate with. You don't take from it, you work with it. You adapt, you respond, you stay open. The ones who last aren't the ones who figure it out. They're the ones who let go of the need to figure it out entirely. They embrace uncertainty as the essence of the game, not the obstacle to it. That's the emotional turning point. You stop needing guarantees. You stop demanding outcomes. You start accepting that your only true edge lies in your ability to remain consistent amid chaos. And once you embrace that, success quietly arrives. Not as a dramatic breakthrough, but as a calm realization that you've been doing the right things all along. There's a freedom that comes with surrender. It's not giving up, it's giving in to reality. It's realizing that the market doesn't owe you anything, and yet it will give you everything if you stop fighting it. When you no longer demand results, you start noticing flow. You take what the market gives and protect what you already have. You're not reactive, you're responsive. You're not chasing, you're aligning. This is why the best traders often speak of letting go. They don't mean letting go of goals, they mean letting go of attachment. They still want success, but they don't need it to feel whole. They've detached their emotional state from their performance. And that detachment allows them to perform at their highest level. It's like breathing. You don't force every breath. You allow it. You trust the rhythm. Trading is the same. When you stop forcing success, you start breathing with the market instead of suffocating under your own expectations. And something miraculous happens when you reach that state. Success stops feeling like something external you have to chase. It becomes internal. It becomes the peace of knowing that you're doing exactly what you're meant to do, exactly how you're meant to do it. The results take care of themselves because you've already mastered the only variable that truly matters. That's when consistency begins to appear naturally. You start stringing together disciplined days, calm executions, and controlled risk. Your growth accelerates not because you're trying harder, but because you've stopped interfering. You've stopped demanding that success arrive on your timeline, and in doing so, you've opened the door for it to arrive exactly when it's supposed to. The irony is beautiful. When you no longer need success, you become the kind of person who attracts it effortlessly. You no longer chase profits. You attract them through composure. You no longer fear losses. You handle them with grace. You no longer fight the market. You flow with it. And that's when the journey transforms from pursuit to practice. You stop seeing trading as a path to freedom and start seeing it as a reflection of freedom. You're no longer trying to become a successful trader. You're living as one. Success arrives quietly, almost unannounced. It sneaks in the back door after you've stopped watching the front. It shows up not in the size of your profits, but in the steadiness of your emotions. It appears when your desire to prove disappears, when your attachment to outcome fades, when your peace no longer depends on performance. You'll know you've reached it when you can lose and still feel calm, when you can win and still stay humble, when you can sit out a trade and still feel whole. That's real success, the kind that no market condition can take away. Because in the end, success in trading isn't about what you gain from the market. It's about who you become because of it. And who you become only reveals itself once you stop demanding, start trusting, and allow the process to unfold exactly as it's meant to. In the end, trading success isn't a finish line. It's a quiet evolution. You don't conquer the market, you align with it. You don't force success, you become someone who naturally expresses it through patience, clarity, and emotional balance. Most traders never make it because they chase results instead of transformation. But once you stop demanding, stop forcing, and start allowing, everything changes. The market stops being your opponent and becomes your mirror. And that's when you finally realize you were never fighting the market, you were only fighting yourself.